Welcome to Web Developers Working Week, the weekly show where I talk about what I've been getting up to as a freelance web developer. Now, this is from Wednesday to Wednesday, so the end of last week was very busy, especially with reading documentation on AWS infrastructure and how we can sort of slot the infrastructure together using different API calls and so forth. Lots of reading on security as well for those kind of things. I find AWS is kind of like a box of jigsaw puzzle pieces, and it's up to you to put the pieces together in a very secure manner. So there was lots of reading of technical documentation written obviously by technical people, which is always good. I think the documentation is okay, although lots of the documentation, they kind of were geared around things that would solve other people's problems rather than the problems that I was facing. And so there was reading of those documentation and also other people's blog posts that were a little bit more geared towards my way of thinking in the sense of what they were trying to actually achieve, because of course this technical documentation is written in a very generic manner. This week has mostly been writing API endpoints and reviewing documentation from particular graphics developers and so forth, graphics designers, and discussing that and the implications of some system builds and so forth. So there was a little bit of, managing of expectations and discussing how things are going to be put together and so forth. There's sort of a series of discovery work. It's not a case of just simply building something really quickly. Often when you are a web developer, you have to think about the implications of what the client needs, and sometimes you need to think about how it's going to affect performance, especially if you're working on a legacy application, because if you are aware of the performance pitfalls that are currently around, and if you try and start adding things to the kind of like the big stack of Jenga blocks, if you will, then if you get it wrong, then it's suddenly going to fall down. So there is a lot of things that one has to think about when they are working on a legacy application, improving it, adding features to it, and so forth. So there's been a lot of that, a lot of sort of, can we do this? Yes, I'm sure we can, but let's go and actually have a look and see how easy it is to achieve. Of course, building something from scratch, you've got a blank canvas to work on. Well, a lot of the jobs that I do, I'm actually working from an existing canvas, and so I have to take a step back and look at what is already in place and see if it's malleable enough for those kind of features. And again, I go back to the security, I go back to the performance, I go back to the extendability of it. You have to see if it can actually be done and what implications it has on the rest of the system if you add that. A lot of the time, developers will just come in and they'll just do some sort of feature upgrade, and they might be brought in as freelancers, and they don't particularly anticipate what might be coming up later on or why something was built in such a way before. What I like to do is look at all of the current stuff that's in play and see how it can actually slot in and fit in without being really disruptive. I try and see it as if I was to come back to this client in, say, a year's time, 2 years' time, I want to be working in an environment that I create and I code that allows for those kind of changes. Of course, you can go a little bit too far with this, quite too far in fact, and actually make something extremely generic. This isn't what I like to do. I try and find the line, if it were, between what the client needs now and what the client will want in the future. Another thing that I've been doing is preparing for a move from PHP 5 to PHP 7, and we're probably looking at 7.0 2 maybe, with one particular client, and that throws up problems itself, challenges and so forth, but I do think that the benefits certainly outweigh the negatives. What I like doing is using Docker as a way of creating different environments based on different versions of things. So, for example, recreating an environment in, say, PHP version 5, 5.6, or what have you, 5.9 in a Docker image, and then having another Docker image in, say, 7.2, 7.1 that can be quickly switched, right? So you're running off the same code base, but you can quickly switch things in and out, run some tests, see what needs to be changed, see what's being deprecated, see what's being removed, and so forth, and then come up with some sort of strategic plan as to how you can actually do this migration process in the least damaging way. One thing I did this Monday, which wasted quite a bit of time, was trying to solve a bug, and it really wasn't a bug. It was a non-issue. It was an issue basically with my memory, because I forgot that I configured a particular system in a certain way the following week or the previous week. So I was testing for speed and load. And so what I wanted to do was kind of mimic a production-esque environment on my laptop. And so I put out all the stops. I used things like Composer-O, which dumps and optimizes the autoloader of all the Composer vendor files and classes and so forth. Not only that, but it also dumps the classes that you write in your bundles for, say, Symfony and other things like that. And I forgot I did this. So when I came back to actually develop code, I created like 4 classes, and I couldn't understand why they weren't being picked up. And I literally spent probably the best part of an hour and a half, maybe even more, trying to fathom out why on earth these classes weren't being picked up by PHP's autoloader. So I did all sorts of double checks. I checked that there was no issue with the spelling of the class, the spelling of the file name, and all of that. I actually wrote unit tests in order to see if I can call these classes from other things. And of course, nothing I did worked. And then it suddenly clicked that the following week, what I did at the end of the week was I decided to test load. And therefore I used Composer install -o to dump out all of the autoloader stuff into a file, which meant that if any other class was being created or had been created, then that wouldn't have been picked up by the autoloader. And basically I shot myself in the foot because I completely forgot about it. And when I went to create these classes, those classes just couldn't be found, and I was literally pulling my hair out trying to work out what on earth was going on. So sometimes the bug isn't with the system, the bug is with the person. In the last episode, I mentioned that I was working on the next talk that I've got for PHP Southwest, which is in August. I'm still working on that. I've got a couple of ideas that I'm slowly formulating, but I'm going to try and plan to do some more of that this evening and probably on to next week and so forth, just to sort of screw down some ideas. Probably once I've nailed down the topic that I'm talking about, I'll probably do some sort of abstract video like I've done before, especially with the frameworks talk that I gave last time. I actually did an abstract video where I was talking about my thoughts. So probably in the next week or so, I'll think about that in more detail. Something you may have noticed is if I slide this way, there used to be a chest of drawers just here. Well, there isn't any now. We are in the process of moving premises, and it won't happen for a while, but I'm just you can tell the amount of stuff that I've got in the office here. I'm just trying to scale things down, but I went to see the premises, the new office, last weekend on Saturday, and yeah, I'm dead chuffed. There's going to be a lot of work involved in actually creating that into an office space. So there is an idea of having a temporary room that I can work in, which is going to be cool. I'm not sure if this desk that I've got here, it's a nice sort of L-shaped desk which basically consumes a large portion of this room. I'm not sure if that's going to fit, so there might be need to get another desk. Ideally, when I'm actually in the office, the real office, the office that we're kind of building or will build when we get the premises, that will hopefully have an area for recording and an area for working, and I want to separate the two rather than have it all in one, but perhaps in a more of an open plan-esque type manner, so I can always switch back from one to the other fairly quickly. But I've got lots of ideas. I really want to talk about these ideas for the office, but I think until we actually get into that place, until I actually start thinking and budgeting, because it's all going to cost a lot of money, then maybe I'll talk about it more when that happens. But I'm really excited by this because hopefully it means that this office will not look so much like a jumble sale of technology. Whee! Also, this week I received a few emails from various companies who would like some training, some teaching in various sort of programming-esque type technologies. Not just code, but also infrastructure, a bit of DevOps and that kind of stuff. And also doing it in person. So this is going in and teaching a group of people on a certain discipline of web development, which I'm really up for. So hopefully I will be talking to those people in more depth later on as the weeks go on. And also I've been approached by various other companies about teaching on online video, basically what I am doing here on the YouTube channel, but in a more of a professional sense. So I am building a course right now on Python for a publisher company, and we're not talking here Skillshare or Udemy or YouTube. We're talking a publishing company that publishes programming books and programming video courses written by programmers for programmers, that kind of thing. So we're kind of in discussions with other vendors, other publishers on that as well, and if I've got any more updates on those, then I'll certainly inform you guys in another one of these episodes. But fingers crossed, things start happening. Although with these things, it can take a long time to work, and there's quite a lot of things that might prevent these things from happening. So for example, conference season is upon us, and therefore I might want to go to various conferences which would prevent me from hitting the deadlines that they would like to achieve. I might not be able to work within their budget or their deadline, and so forth. So it's baby steps, but what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of things that will happen that might change the course of these things. I've been into talks before with companies who would like me to come in and teach on a sort of a personal thing, and I've done it. I've taught groups of people various programming languages and so forth, and I find this really, really good. I really enjoy doing it. I like being able to share knowledge in that kind of way, and I think that there is something that you particularly lose from a video that you do gain when you're actually doing things in person. And of course there's obviously the fact that with video it's recorded, and therefore you can go back and rewind it and watch it again and again and again. It's totally different from when you're actually going in person, because you can actually sort of explain and do more of a one-to-one-esque type conversation with the developer, with the junior developer, with the person who is wanting to study this thing. When you're doing video, of course, you're not targeting a single person or a single group of people. You are doing it in a generic manner to solve a generic thing. It's a bit like what I was saying earlier when you're reading technical documentation about, say, AWS, and it's written in a very generic manner. And you're actually wanting to use it for a different purpose, or you want to use, say, the security side of AWS, but the output is different from what is explained on the actual documentation. So, for example, you might have different uses of S3, but I think that when you're actually going in to have a personal tuition session, mentoring a group, then you can actually really get down to the nitty-gritty details of what that group or what that person actually needs, which I think is fantastic. And talking about mentoring, I actually helped a fella out this week who was asking for some advice, some recommendations on PHP resources. And I sent him a bunch of links on sort of a jumping point, a signpost him to certain resources that I particularly think are very useful. And I'm very happy to do that. I can't do this all the time, obviously. I don't have the time or capacity to help everyone out, but I will certainly do this when I can. So if anybody wants to have any kind of support or help, then drop me a message either here on YouTube or Twitter. And recently I've been publishing more content to Instagram. So what I've been putting on there are photos of what happens here in the office in the background that I don't talk about or don't show in the videos on YouTube, but I've also been putting some videos up on Instagram's IGTV platform. Now this is a vertical video platform, and I've been using this as a way of explaining and talking about some answers to technical questions in a very precise manner. And following on from some of those questions, I will be creating some video tutorials. And I think these two will work hand in hand, because on Instagram you have the explanation, and on the YouTubes you'll have the actual demonstration. And obviously I'll be talking about the explanation in the demonstration, obviously, but there's certain questions that I can answer very quickly and very precisely on IGTV, and I think that is probably what I'm going to be using it for, as well as perhaps some bloopers, as well as some sort of backstory things that happen here in the office. I also post a lot of images of my cats because, why not? But basically that's what's happened. I've been using Instagram as a means of sort of sharing more content, and I think it's quite an interesting platform. So if you don't follow me already, please do. My tag is @HowToCodeWell. And as always, if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, then do let me know. Put your thoughts down in the comment section below. If there's anything in particular that you want me to talk about in terms of web development, in terms of programming, then let me know as well. Give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you again soon. If you haven't done so already, please do check out the howtocodewell.net website. This is going to be home of the YouTube tutorials and the videos that I'm putting on YouTube. So this one here is the Microsoft Buys GitHub. This was the video I did on my opinions for that. We also have some courses. Not all of the courses are on here. This is the Udemy for Docker. This is the PHP stuff, Udemy and Skillshare. We also have links to Docker in Motion. This is the course I did for Manning Publications. We also have a shop, and in this shop we have various books for different programming languages. These are books that I recommend. The one for Python when you're learning Flask is this book here. This is Flask Web Development, which is this one just here, if I highlight that. Thanks for watching. Happy coding. Follow me on Instagram. See you again soon. Cheers. Bye.